Joshua Saxe, thanks for coming on the Ground Level AI podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sharon. You're super happy to be here.
It's my first episode.
Oh, whoa. Okay, this is a real honor. I'm genuinely honored that you invited me to be your first guest. So.
No pressure.
Okay, I'll do my best.
No, that's great. No, really happy to talk to you. I feel like I first reached out to you to try and get some dirt on Meta, but but then I feel like we transitioned to more like regular chatting about AI security and the actual work you're doing now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah.
I don't think you gave me any good dirt, so don't worry.
Okay, that's good. That's good to hear. Yeah.
Well, before we get into everything AI and security, AI and society, AI and capabilities, etc., you live in Kansas, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
You live in Wichita.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that would be surprising to a lot of people. You don't live in Silicon Valley. Have you always worked from Kansas?
No, yeah. So I'm from California, and I grew up in LA, and
Okay.
My wife is a humanities academic, and so since I met her 15 years ago, I've been just sort of like following her around because it's hard to get a job as a humanities PhD, and anyway, so we're here in Kansas because she got a job at the University Art Museum here. But yeah, this is where I live now. I mean, we've got 2 kids here that we're raising here, and like. Yes, I'm definitely a Kansan at this point.
So what is it like? What is it like working at the forefront of AI and yet being in Kansas? Does it feel strange being so far from Silicon Valley, or is it actually a benefit, sort of an advantage in a way?
It's a good question.
I told you I'd surprise you.
No, it's basically really, really nice, I'd say. My work's always been really intense, but since ChatGPT launched, the AI world has gotten really intense. So I was at Meta like in 2022 when that happened, and then it was just like, I was completely consumed by working on large language models, and probably been working 60 hours a week. If you count all the time I spend reading and thinking about work, it's I'm just like very immersed in work. So I think it's really nice to work from home, so that like every time I step out of my office, I'm here, I can see my family, and also to be around people who have no idea what I do, and to have like a community of friends who aren't in tech. And Kansas is much more like you work to pay the bills, and then you have a life, which is not like Silicon Valley. So yeah, it's a good balance, I would say.
I feel like that's a really nice thing. Very refreshing. Yeah,
it really is. Yeah, I've just, even though I'm from Los Angeles, it's like when I go to the big city now, and I feel like it's like hard to like, there's like no traffic out here, and like like everything is just easy, So yeah, I like living here.
So if you come out to SF and you see all the billboards with the tech billboards touting enterprise AI, does it just feel like an alternate universe?
Yeah, it really does. It really does. I think working in AI safety, and also, I mean, I'd say I'd put AI security as sort of under the umbrella of AI safety. Like, it's just nice to be in contact with regular people who, feel like they are sort of downstream of the societal effects of AI. I think for whom, it's a very different perspective out here. I think people feel as though AI is tech's next experiment that they're doing on them, and I don't know, it's just like nice to be in touch with that perspective. I think it grounds me.
Do you reassure them, or do you just let them have their feelings?
No, I don't reassure them. Yeah, and sometimes I feel like a bit of a lightning rod at dinner parties, especially when I was working at Meta. Nobody likes Meta. And also, they don't like AI, and I work in AI. So, yeah.
So you were at Meta for 3 or 4 years, is that right?
Yeah, like summer of 2022, and then I just left a few months ago.
Yeah, and you left to just do your own thing, kind of like what I'm doing, but abundant security, right? And can you talk a little bit about that switch, like what made you leave and what you were looking to start?
Yeah, it was hard to leave my old job, and it was hard to leave big tech. Maybe I could have gone to one of the other AI shops also, and I thought about doing that. Yeah, I just wanted to. I think once in my career, I wanted to try starting something totally from scratch. So part of it was just wanting to have the experience of doing a startup before I get too old and tired to do it. Yeah, also part of it was like I've worked in cybersecurity my whole professional life, and it right now feels like probably the most opportune time to do a startup, just because the whole field is just really being turned upside down by AI. There's things you can't do when you're doing a startup just because you're so small, but there's things that you can do because you can move fast and stuff that I felt like I would have been frustrated. There's things I wanted to do that I think I could have only done at a startup. So that's another reason.
I think I was reading that you said this. I could be wrong, but it really stuck with me. I think it was you that posted somewhere saying, I can't believe heads of state are talking about AI right now, and AI and security right now, I should say. I have totally felt, I'm like, wow, who turned this kind of highly technical field into something that presidents and heads of state talk about? Do you feel that way? Is this like, how do you describe this moment in AI and the security and safety issues?
It feels surreal to me. I think partly because so from my life history perspective, it feels pretty random. Like I think I got interested in. I was always a security person, but like as a teenager, I was a hacker. I was part of like the hacker youth culture kind of thing. I didn't know much about AI.
What does that mean? What is the hacker youth culture?
I don't know, like around like in the 90s and early 2000s, right around the time of the internet boom, there were a lot of kids, me included, who were sort of joyriding around the internet, breaking into networks, writing exploits, writing tools that helped make it easy to break into university and corporate and military networks, and we were just doing it for fun,
Good times.
Yeah, and that generation. I mean, I wasn't the smartest or most prominent person in that crowd, but some of those people, I would say, that was a time in which many of the techniques that still live on today and that people use to break into networks and also secure networks were invented. So it's a very fun time to be involved in security. And that's my origin story. I'm one of probably a couple thousand people who were sort of involved in that scene.
And it's a whole new world now. You have a Substack. I've been reading your posts. And you always have some really interesting things that I learn a lot about. Like your post, I think from your latest post, I think it was today or yesterday, it's kind of counterintuitive to a lot of people, I think. Like you said, the idea of what happened with Anthropic's Mythos and Fable, the idea of the government stepping in and saying, we need to shut this down for now. There was a jailbreak. That you say this is the absolute wrong thing to do for the US, that actually the opposite is true. Can you explain this thesis of yours and how you would explain it?
So the Mythos model is one of many models that are out today that can find vulnerabilities in software and also help to exploit them. Mythos is the best model. Well, it may be the best model. It may be the GPT 5.6 model that was just released, I think yesterday. Is better. I'm not sure, but it's it's in the top tier. Your listeners may or may not know, right? So the government decided that this Mythos model was like especially dangerous, and so they didn't allow Anthropic to release it. And then when they did release it, they released it in a way that made it difficult to use for really any cybersecurity task. I mean, you can give. I mean, even now, right? You can give the Fable model. So Mythos and Fable are the same model. They're just guardrailed in different ways. So even now, like if I give the Fable, if I ask the Fable model, like I don't know, I'm not sure this would work, but it's a simple thing like I'd like to check what ports are open across my network. Can you help me port scan it? It'll probably say no. Even though that's like a routine task that an IT security person does on their network. So anyways, like I think the fact that the US was not allowing Anthropic to release this model and then only allowed them to release it in this heavily guardrailed way where you can't use it for defensive cybersecurity tasks is bad. It is true that by doing that, they deny cyber attackers access to that model. But there are a number of problems with that perspective. So one is that attackers already have access to good models that are open weights that they can run on their infrastructure, and that we know can find vulnerabilities in software. They could use the Fable model is better at that. But there's lots of reasons why attackers wouldn't want to rely on it heavily, right? So one is that when they use it, they're giving all their data to Anthropic that has a close relationship with the FBI and the NSA. And,
That's true.
Yeah. So even if they get away with using it, they might eventually, be detected in the logs, and Anthropic could then make use of that data, right, to track them down, and some law enforcement agency could track them down and arrest them. Or if this is a nation state level activity, that's also bad just because you're giving away intelligence and betraying the way you work. So that's one. So I think attackers are going to want to use the open weights models, not primarily the Anthropic and OpenAI models. There's some objections that people would raise at this point that I have good rebuttals to, I think, but I'll move on to my other points. So let's say Anthropic wasn't monitoring use of their models, and attackers and defenders were both using their models. I think defenders still have an advantage in having access to these models in that they can find and fix bugs in there before they ship it. So in an ideal world, all software producing organizations would be using these models to find and fix bugs before shipping updates or before shipping version 1.0 of their software, and we'd be much more secure. I'll also say there are way more defenders than there are attackers, and they have more money to spend on tokens, and so they have an opportunity. Even imagining sort of even playing field, everybody has access to these models. I think eventually we get to a steady state in which defenders are benefiting. Anyways, it's a long spiel. You think you see?
No, it's so interesting. I feel like for a lot of people that seems counterintuitive, but what you're saying is that first of all, attackers would be more likely to use an open model under the radar, a Chinese AI model. It's good enough for them to do what they want to do to get in and attack. And you're saying that denying defenders use of the top models like Mythos and Fable doesn't allow defenders to catch up. And I've spoken to a lot of folks that say that's really a lot of organizations are really behind in that regard as far as finding and patching vulnerabilities. They're quite behind, and they need to quickly catch up. Is that right?
Yeah. So you're saying that like a lot of people would respond to what I just said and say, sure, Josh, in an ideal world, the defenders would use the models before the attackers, but in reality, the defenders are going to move more slowly than the attackers.
I think just a lot of people just default to it's not good that these very scary models are out there for everybody.
You got it. Yeah, it's possible that it's not. I think the way I think the way to build confidence in an answer one way or another is just to look at how attackers and defenders are behaving, right? And so lots of AI capabilities that are possibly useful to attackers have been out for a while now, right? Since 2022, 2023, and we haven't seen a sort of sky is falling moment. So for example, I think since GPT, 3.5, maybe 3, I'm not sure. Probably 3.5. We've had, and then definitely since Llama 3, we've had Turing test passing chatbots available to attackers, right? Which, in the sort of apocalyptic scenario, attackers would just seize this en masse. There'd be a sort of 90-degree angle adoption curve. They'd adopt these models, and then there would just be a sort of apocalyptic level of scams and frauds, abuse of these models, and we would see many billions more dollars stolen from vulnerable populations, from scams and fraud. like actually when you look at the sort of time series data of scams and fraud, it's just been sort of going up steadily, the last 6 years or so since the pandemic, very smoothly and without any noticeable effects from the release of these large language models at all.
Why is that? I feel like that's also something I can't wrap my mind around, because we do hear that every release, everyone's very nervous that, attackers are going to, take over, and all these scams and frauds it's going to go up, a huge trajectory. Why hasn't there been some like a single, like a hack like we see that makes headlines? We haven't seen that.
Yeah. I mean, so for scams and fraud in particular, first I should say this is not like my area of deep expertise, so I'll just tell you what I know. I think it's complicated. Like, so there's a bunch of, so these are bits. So take pig butchery. You might be familiar with pig butchering scams. So pig butchering is like, I'll just say for the benefit of your audience, right? So like this is these are like long con scams in which these are organized criminal enterprises. So there'll be some business and some, usually part of the developing worlds, where they operate like these criminal units operate like call centers, and there are people in there who do these long con scams, usually often like on elderly people or people who are extremely lonely. They draw the victim in, they get the victim to fall in love with them, and then they sort of slowly empty the victim's bank account, of like hundreds of thousands of dollars, their whole retirement savings, kind of thing. So my understanding is that LLMs are useful there, and like when you've got a non-English speaker, operating the criminal enterprise, smoothing out the language and thing. I also understand that like AI image generators are used there to generate fake content to make it seem like the person on the other end is a real person and this kind of thing. But there's other bottlenecks to scaling up those operations beyond, the fact that the operator is speaking broken English or doesn't have good photos. Like one is like payment rails. So typically the money is laundered in such a way that it makes it hard to trace. And like that's hard. Finding, these, even with LLMs, there are manual parts to this process. Finding people. So oftentimes the people who operate these scams are actually indentured servants or slaves. Like they've been trafficked in such a way that they can't. They're forced to work in these like call center types.
But actually, I'm also wondering, with Mythos and even just over the past year, there's been a lot of concern about AI security and national security, like critical infrastructure and things like that. But we actually haven't seen any headline-making AI attack.
You mean like a cyber, not like a scams and fraud thing, but like a kind of sort of like a hack of like some of the famous whatever, like Equifax, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's not, to me, it's not that surprising. If you consider the way attackers work, first, people might assume that because Mythos can find bugs in software, that's somehow going to lead to a catastrophic hack. That's highly that doesn't make sense from a causality perspective. Like, finding a bug. Let's say Sharon, that we have a bug, a 0-click bug in WhatsApp, so I can send you a WhatsApp message and then I immediately have access to your phone or something. That's just the first. Or let's say I can maybe to your Signal, and you're using Signal on your computer, and for example, so I send you a message over Signal and suddenly I have access to your laptop. That doesn't actually get me all the way to achieving some catastrophic goal, right? So let's say you work for Fortune, where you used to work, right? And I get access to your corporate laptop. Now I have user level privileges on your account, but now I have to figure out where are the sensitive documents, right? How do I move laterally to get from your laptop to some administrator computer? There's like many more steps I have to do. And in each step, there are extra, in any real organization, there are extra security guardrails, right? So people are monitoring the logs, right? And they might catch me, and I'll need additional exploits, right? If I'm going to try to get to administrator privileges on your laptop, right? I'll need to social engineer. So it's like, they exploit I think somehow in the public imagination, finding the bug is conflated with like bringing down the US government or something. And it's like, that's just not how cybersecurity actually works.
What are you most concerned about then? What is there anything that keeps you up at night and you're like, yikes?
So security wise,
or society wise.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I'll start with security. I mean, so I think that I am concerned about attacker adoption of AI. I think it's going to be a big deal. I think there's going to be lots of dangers that arise from that, some of which are hard to predict now. So what I mean by unpredictability is like, I think very few people in 2005 predicted that ransomware would be like a multi-billion-dollar industry, in 2020. And like, that's because of the combinatorial nature of technology, right? Like ransomware emerged like, not so much because of security innovation, but because of like cryptocurrency, cryptocurrency like made it possible. And like, I don't know, there was like a bunch of factors, like the rise of sort of organized crime and the sort of industrialization of cyber attacks and and there's like a lot of factors that led to ransomware, and like that was a big surprise. I think like AI made, like, just in the same way that like cryptocurrency enabled ransomware, and AI may enable like new business models we haven't seen before. And so like I think it is general. I think it's totally reasonable to be concerned about that. I also think the existing organizations like nation states and ransomware gangs, and like scams and fraud, like pig butchering operations, I think like they're all going to adopt AI, but like I wouldn't necessarily expect them to adopt AI faster than like Deloitte or Accenture or the New York Times, and which are all on like slowly walking their own adoption curves, So I think the process is going to be slower than it's often assumed in the sort of catastrophic attention grabbing headlines, but that said, 5 years from now, I think they'll all be using AI, and so the defenders have to use AI.
Well, yesterday I wrote a post about this Jade Puffer attack. And one of the experts I spoke to said that he was more terrified of this sort of thing than Mythos, because it was based on known vulnerabilities. Like, it was kind of old school technique, but what the AI was able to do on its own was chain it all together, and it could be done from us pretty cheap. Is that a concern? Do you see?
Yeah. I saw the Jade Puffer thing, but I haven't read about it in detail yet. Like, but my understanding was here a large language model was used agentically to do multiple steps along the attack sort of kill chain. Like, we call it a kill chain and cyber, like, so like the attack kill chain. So I think this is a much bigger concern, like, than practically speaking, than the ability to find bugs in applications. It's a little nuanced, because if AI was used to find, like, there are some bugs that would be catastrophic if attackers found, but in general, I'm more on balance. I'm more worried about. I agree with the person you talked to. I mean, like, if you or anybody in your audience has used like Claude Code or OpenAI Codex, I think you've seen the kind of functionality that you're talking about, right? So like an agent can execute shell commands and open websites and test code out, and and work for hours on its own, sort of getting a long range task done. In software engineering, it's pretty clear that 80% of those skills are overlapping with the skills needed to like break into a network and achieve some goal on a network. And it's pretty clear that like today's LLMs can automate much of that work. And we haven't really seen. We've seen a couple. Anthropic published an example of a Chinese threat group doing some of this. Like, there's this Jade Puffer thing, I guess. But like, we haven't seen attackers adopt this in force yet. But I do think probably over the next, I suspect this year and in the coming couple of years, we'll see large scale adoption of this kind of behavior. And I think it will make it easier. It'll lead to more cyber attacks for sure.
It's interesting. Whenever I speak to security folks about AI, I'm always reassured that you seem pretty chilled out. Like, it's not like you're, really nervous seeming to me. So that makes me feel good.
I think it's kind of similar to like, I think there's a dynamic where people who are experts in AI, but maybe not experts in domains outside of AI, feel like, oh, those other domains are just like so trivial. Like, oh, cybersecurity is just really about finding bugs and exploiting them. And like, and then so they assume that it's like super easy to automate. Like I think the most famous example of this is Jeff Hinton in like 2016 saying that all the radiologists are going to get fired within a couple of years. Like, he's obviously brilliant and he's an AI expert, but I'm not sure he's ever done an ethnography of a hospital or really understood what the radiologists do,
Right.
And I think this is a similar dynamic with folks in the AI labs who work in sort of AI safety, who I think assume cybersecurity is just as simple. Does that make sense? Like there's a dynamic where cybersecurity just reduces to these 3 tasks, and the AI is very good at those tasks. So there's going to be a cyber apocalypse, this kind of thing.
When I first started covering AI and cybersecurity a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, it didn't seem like there were a lot of people that had expertise in both areas. It was kind of a small group. Do you see that really changing now, or still not?
I think it's starting to change. Although we could still use a lot more people who have expertise in both areas. But just in the last 6 to 9, I'd say since Claude Opus 4.5 came out and Claude Code became really popular around like Thanksgiving break last year, there's been like an enormous change in the security community where like security folks are getting really hyped up about AI. Like the security community heard that AI was supposed to be a big thing throughout the whole 2010s. And there was just a huge collective eye roll at that idea. I mean, I spent that decade working in machine learning and security, and I suffered through many of those eye rolls. And now suddenly in the last 9 months, nobody's rolling their eyes anymore, which is cool. But still, we could use more people who have like deep expertise in both areas for sure.
What do you think that security folks, in organizations, maybe they've stopped rolling their eyes, but what are they still really need to get on board about?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to be more aggressive in reinventing the way that we do security organizationally. Like the organizations, like the companies and government agencies that they really do need to care a lot about cybersecurity. Like, the big tech companies, banks, like again, like the federal, local, and state governments, like they all tend to have real security organizations and like teams that have complicated structures and set processes around how they do security, and they all have an inertia around how they do things, and that inertia can be harmful right now. So for example, like there are very set sort of ways that we deal with following up on security. So in security, when a core activity within security is products issue alerts, like, oh, there might be an attacker in this server or something, and then a human follows up and checks to see if it's a real compromise, right? And like we have set ways of dealing with those kinds of things, and like I think we're gonna need to like really radically lean in to reconsidering the way those processes work, given the new AI capabilities we have, and like continuously do that, because every 6 months the AI capabilities change. Also, there's a lot of conservatism in security, and a lot of opinionated people who are set in their ways, and like that's a barrier, I would say.
And things need to be more speedy and at scale, so that's a change.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to be going to Black Hat and DEF CON, two conferences, one back to back in Vegas, where it'll be 110 degrees outside. So this will be my 3rd time going. It's really like an alternate universe full of security people. It's fascinating. I'm anticipating that it's going to be quite interesting this year, given everything that's happened over the past 9 months and what's gone on, Mythos and Fable making headline news around the world for security issues.
Yep. Totally agree. Yeah.
What do you think are going to be the big talking points, or just chatter in the hallways?
I've gone every year to those conferences like since forever. And like, but I like a few years ago I think I went in 2020. No, I went in 2023 and to DEF CON. And at that point, DEF CON, there was like the main conference, and there was a little AI thing called AI Village. And I gave a talk at AI Village, and this wasn't just for my talk. This was just for like the track that I was on. But there was like a line to try to get into the room. There was so long that not only could people not fit to get into the AI Village room, but it was like they had to like cycle. People just stood in line for like 2 hours, and like until they got a turn to listen to like one of the talks, and they kept cycling people in and out. Yeah, to me that was like the transition point, and then like now I just expect all of the talks to be about AI. Yeah, that's like all people talk about in security now is AI. So, yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
So I want to turn to Meta. So you were leading AI security at Meta for Llama, is that right?
Yeah, so I was the engineering. So the way Meta is organized is for anything. There's like an engineering lead, and then there's like a product lead. So I was the engineering lead for the security part of Llama, and then I had a partner, Spencer Whitman, who was the product lead. So yeah, I was technical lead for Llama, for Llama security. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the latest release, which I understand is not open weights like Llama was? Are you impressed with what they've done with their announcement? Have you tried the model? And what do you think about how things have changed in that regard at Meta?
So I tried Muse Spark 1. I haven't tried this new update from yesterday yet. I mean, overall, just on a personal level, I feel happy for my old friends there. Yeah, it was, the Llama 4 launch was, I think it's public knowledge. It was disappointing. The people I worked with, we were all like everybody else. We were all working like 60, 70 hours a week leading up to the Llama 4 launch, and it was like just really just like it was disappointing the way that turned out. So it's just on a personal level, it's a really nice comeback story. Yeah, I have friends who are working there, and I'm like happy for them. Yeah, I mean, I think to me, as an observer now, being outside Meta, I would say this launch has put Meta back on the map. I mean, it's just sort of, they could have done better. Obviously, I mean, I think Meta's probably got the 6th or 7th ranked model now, or something like that. No, I mean, I think they've shown that they're still in the race. I think what really matters now is the next release, and if they advance further, right? I mean, if they surpass this launch, might have put them past Google. I'm waiting to see all the evaluation results. Maybe they're probably on tier with Google now in terms of how well their models are performing. So I think this year they'll have to figure out how to get up with OpenAI and Anthropic. If they can get close, I think that snowballs. It means they can retain their staff better, which has been a big problem for them. A lot of my old friends have left for the other labs now, and even start to become seen as like a desirable place to go build frontier models. I think as soon as you start to get perceived as just losing the race, you lose a lot of talented people, because everybody in the AI world wants to be close to the frontier.
I feel like we need some sort of board game with like every lab having a colored car. And we could just move them along to see who's winning the race.
Yeah, I know.
I want to know, so Abundant Security is your new startup, and you posted that you're sort of coming out of stealth, sort of. What exactly is the product that you're offering?
Yeah. So the thing that we're working on is, I think, the most important thing to, at least that's what I think, which is the problem that any organization that's large enough just has an enormous amount of security debt that they haven't paid off. By security debt, I mean web servers running software from 2012 that's no longer being patched by the vendor, or like login portals that don't have two-factor authentication, but that control, like the way that their firewalls being like a login portal to their firewall, that doesn't have two-factor authentication turned on, that somebody could just come and brute force it. There's like a million things like that, and we've been working with early customers, and it's like appalling, like the amount of like obvious like security gaps that any large organization has. I mean, like take like a large research university that's been around since the birth of the internet, right? Like organizations like that have literally hundreds of thousands of machines that are exposed to the internet, many of which are incredibly old, and if you broke into them, you could then move laterally and take over, larger sections of the network. Like, we're not working on finding new bugs or like doing anything sexy, like finding incredibly hard to find security weaknesses, but rather automating the process of like sort of burning down this mountain of security tech debt that organizations are sitting on, which is like inflammable material, we feel, for of like Agentic AI security. because we think that attacker automation will target this low hanging fruit before it targets higher hanging fruit.
So how do you use AI to do that? Like,
Yeah. So the platform we're building, it maps out an organization's infrastructure, code bases, but then also we think really importantly, it's people. And it builds like a sort of network representation of the entire sort of socio-technical like structure of the organization, like who works on what, who's responsible for what servers and what parts of the code base and what products, what individual engineer, controls the configuration file that exposes a security risk to the internet. And then once we have that map, then we have AI agents that find the most important issues in terms of importance and in terms of how likely they are to be exploited by attackers, and pings the people who could fix them, and then sort of holds their hands through the fixing process, and does most of the fixing automatically, but just sort of gets their confirmation and approval upon doing the fixing, which is this is a totally different way of doing it than anybody. And I mean, I won't speak directly to places I've worked, but basically everything is, I can say from my experience working as a security person at large companies, this process is extremely slow and manual and not AI driven right now. So we're looking to make it dramatically easier and faster so that we can actually solve these problems.
I'm assuming that it's probably not just slow, but probably it's not something people want to do. They don't want to spend their time on it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. It's an awful part of being in a security organization. Much of one's job in a security organization, and the way companies are organized today, it's there'll be a security team, which is 3% of the company, and then for tech companies, there's a product team, which is 40% of the company, and an IT team, which is also much larger than the security organization. And your job as a security person is to find problems that you're not actually allowed to fix, right? You find the security problems, then you have to go tell some product manager in the engineering organization, listen, I know you need to ship your product next Tuesday, but can you wait 2 days to fix this security issue? And the product manager may or may not want to listen to you, and then maybe they ship the product anyways, but then for the next 2 quarters, you have to keep nagging them once a week to please fix the issue. You're accountable for getting the thing fixed, but you're not the one who can actually do it. And so often the way security works is you have 20 open chat threads with people where you just keep nagging them to fix the thing. And it's it's really awful. And it's why so many security gaps are still open. So we want to automate a lot of that social process also in 2 ways. We want to take over the problem of nagging people, but we also want to make people less naggable by making it really easy for them to fix it. And so we should I can go into more detail, but that's sort of the general. That's what we're doing.
There are so many AI security startups. I get the feeling that there's just a lot of different problems that need to be solved because everyone seems to be coming from a different angle, but there's just so many.
Yeah. It feels like the best time to do an AI security startup, except that there are so many, except that everybody else sees that and there are a bajillion AI security startups. So yeah, I totally agree. I mean, most of us aren't, it's a crazy thing to do to start a startup, right? I mean, not all the startups are going to succeed.
How is founder life so far?
I mean, the amazing thing is it's just getting to build exactly what we want really quickly, in a way that's totally uninhibited by any bureaucracy, or stakeholder alignment. Also, a nice thing about our startup is that because my co-founders and I have been around for a while in our industry, we know chief information security officers who want to work with us. And so we have, we're not isolated. We have companies we're working with already and that kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, on the downside, it's it's risky, hard to know whether things are going to work out, it's risky business wise, but it's also risky if one wants to have an impact on the world, because if it doesn't work out, counterfactually, I would have been better off at one of the AI labs shipping software to billions of people, and securing that, So,
well, speaking of that, so you said you have a lot of friends that did end up going to the other labs.
Mhm.
What do you hear from them? Like, what's the vibe?
Yeah, in general, everybody's working incredibly hard in the AI industry right now. Like, it's just, I think this is an all-consuming thing to be involved with at this moment. And so I think it's mostly that. Everybody just seems all consumed all the time with this. You know, there's a sense, there's almost like millenarian. I'm not pronouncing that right, but sort of like there's a feeling of eschatology or, you know, apocalypse. You know, sort of all the time around, you know, this is the most important invention since fire, but it might kill everybody. You know, and it's also the most important moment in our cybersecurity careers, you know, that I think everybody who's passionate and successful in this field sort of feels right now. So that's the vibe, I would say.
That's kind of nice because it does feel like, you know, if other people in Silicon Valley feel that their jobs are going to go away, I feel like the opposite is true about AI and cybersecurity.
No, yeah, it doesn't feel, I don't know, at least I haven't been around. There are very few people in security, people who are like artisanal. Like I know people who are like master bug finders who used to look for bugs manually, who sometimes have gallows humor around losing their jobs, but I don't think anybody, I don't think any of them really believe that. I think we all know we're going to have jobs.
Yeah, they might miss the manual bug finding, but there's other things to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is perfect, Joshua Saxe. Thank you so much. So interesting.
Yeah,
I could talk for another hour, but being mindful of the time here. So thank you.
Yeah. No, it was great. Yeah, thanks a lot, Sharon. I was honored to be invited, and looking forward to watching your future podcasts.
Thank you.